The first thing I tasted was peach. The second was cinnamon. The third was my best friend's mouth, which, for the record, was not listed anywhere on the little index card she'd been reading from in her bossy, cheerful voice for the past 10 minutes. I was sitting at Tessa Whitaker's kitchen table on a Sunday afternoon with a black silk scarf tied over my eyes, one hand wrapped around a glass of water, the other gripping the edge of the chair like I was being interrogated by the world's most attractive pastry criminal. "Okay," she said, too close to me. "Final round." "Tess," I said, "if this is another experimental jam, I'm begging you to remember, I have done nothing to deserve beet marmalade twice in one lifetime." That was one time. It tasted like a farmer's market got into a bar fight. She laughed, and I felt it more than heard it, because she was standing right beside me. Her laugh had always been dangerous that way. Warm, low, like she was letting you in on a secret she hadn't decided to tell anyone else. My name is Logan Pierce. I was 25, an audio editor for a small food and travel channel in Nashville, and I'd built a fairly peaceful life around two things: clean sound and not saying feelings out loud unless absolutely required by law. Tessa had become the exception to almost every rule I had. We'd met 2 years earlier when I was hired to fix the audio for a bakery tour segment she'd hosted with a broken mic and an alarming amount of confidence. She was 24 then, already a pastry chef with flour on her cheek, a sharp tongue, and the kind of presence that made people turn their heads without knowing why. By the time the episode went live, we were best friends. By the time I realized that was not the whole truth, I was already too deep to do anything sensible about it. "Open," she said. I did. Something sweet touched my tongue. Creamy, bright, a little tart. "Lemon curd," I said. "Too easy." "With vanilla bean." "Show off." "And something floral." She made a small sound of approval. "Go on." I swallowed, trying not to focus on the fact that her fingers had brushed my lower lip when she'd fed me the spoon. That was the problem with blindfolds. They made every other sense act like it had been waiting years for a promotion. "Lavender," I said. "Correct. Do I win a prize?" "You've been eating free dessert for half an hour." "I meant a respectable prize, maybe a plaque." "You want a plaque for having a mouth?" I smiled under the scarf. "Depends who's asking." The kitchen went quiet. Not silent exactly. The refrigerator hummed. A car passed outside. Somewhere on the counter, her old wall clock ticked with the steady confidence of an object that had never once ruined a friendship by wanting more. Tessa shifted. I heard the faint scrape of her boots on the tile. That was when I knew something had changed. Before that afternoon, we'd had a rhythm. Easy, careful. The kind of friendship people teased us about because we functioned too smoothly together. I fixed her website when it crashed. She left sourdough on my doorstep after long editing nights. I carried the heavy bins when she did pop-up events. She insulted my coffee preferences with the tenderness of a woman who had memorized them. People assumed we were dating. We corrected them, every time. Usually too fast. But lately, Tessa had been different. Softer in moments she used to joke through. Quieter when my hand found the small of her back in a crowd. Watching me sometimes like she'd misplaced a sentence and thought maybe I was carrying it. I should have asked her about it. Instead, because I was a man with a long history of choosing emotional cowardice and calling it timing, I sat blindfolded at her kitchen table and made jokes about beet marmalade. "Last one," she said. Her voice had changed too. "Tessa, don't peek. I'm blindfolded. You're also nosy. I prefer attentive. You once read the label on a hot sauce bottle while I was telling you about my aunt's gallbladder surgery. To be fair, that hot sauce had a warning from the state of Texas." She laughed again, but it came out nervous this time. Then her fingers touched my chin. Not with the casual confidence of feeding me a spoonful of cake filling. This was slower. Uncertain. Her thumb brushed just beneath my lower lip and my entire brain went very still. "Tess," I said quietly. "Guess the flavor," she whispered. And then she kissed me. Not a clumsy accident, not a joke, not some frosting-smudged mishap we could laugh off before panic set in. She kissed me like she had thought about it. Her lips were warm and soft, tasting faintly of lemon and sugar, and for one suspended second, I forgot every intelligent thing I had ever pretended to be. My hand left the chair and found her waist by instinct. She inhaled against my mouth, a tiny broken sound that went straight through me. I should have pulled back. I didn't. I kissed her back. The scarf over my eyes made it worse and better at the same time. I couldn't see her face, couldn't read her expression, couldn't protect myself with analysis. All I had was the shape of her close to me, the tremble in her hand near my jaw, the familiar vanilla scent of her shampoo, and the terrifying knowledge that my best friend fit against me like I'd been missing the obvious ending to my own life. Then she stepped back. Air rushed between us. I sat there blindfolded, breathing like I'd run up 3 flights of stairs, my hand still half lifted where her waist had been. "Tessa," I said. The silk scarf loosened. Light hit my eyes in a soft blur. Her kitchen came back in pieces. Sun across the butcher block counter, a tray of tasting spoons, the little bowls of fillings, Tessa standing in front of me in a soft blue sweater with her hair pinned up messily and a streak of powdered sugar near her wrist. She looked beautiful. Worse, she looked scared. Not regretful. Scared. That distinction nearly undid me. I stood slowly. "What was that?" She crossed her arms, then uncrossed them immediately, like even her body couldn't commit to pretending. "A taste test." "Tess." "I did say final round." "You kissed me." "Yes." "And asked me to guess the flavor." "Yes." I took one step closer. "What was the flavor?" Her eyes flicked to my mouth. There it was. Desire. Clear as noon. Then she looked away. For 2 years, I had seen Tessa handle angry brides, collapsed cakes, late deliveries, power outages, and one terrifying 12-year-old who wanted a croquembouche shaped like a dragon. I had seen her brave. But that afternoon, in her own sunlit kitchen, she looked like the next sentence might cost her everything. "I was going to tell you after the tasting," she said. "Tell me what?" She picked up one of the index cards from the table, then set it down again. Her hands were not steady. "My aunt in Portland offered me the pastry director job at her new restaurant." Something in my chest tightened. Portland. Not across town, not a longer commute. Portland, Oregon. 2,000 miles of mountains, airports, time zones, and unanswered texts dressed up as adult opportunity. I forced myself to breathe. "That's big." "It is." "When?" She looked at me then. 3 weeks. The kitchen seemed to tilt, just a little. I had imagined losing Tessa someday in vague, responsible ways. To some confident guy who wore good shoes and new wine. To a bigger career. To life moving as life had a rude habit of doing. I had not imagined losing her 3 minutes after finding out how she tasted when she was trying to be brave. I swallowed. "So that kiss was what? A going-away gift?" Her face tightened. "No." "Then what?" She looked down at the table, at the little spoons and bowls lined up between us like evidence. When she spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. It was me needing to know if leaving would hurt for the reason I thought it would. My heart kicked once, hard. "And?" I asked. Tessa lifted her eyes to mine. Before she could answer, her phone buzzed on the counter. Neither of us moved. Then it buzzed again. She glanced at the screen and every bit of color left her face. I knew I shouldn't look, but I did. The message preview was from her aunt. "Flight booked. Contract attached. Need your answer tonight." Tessa's hand went to her mouth. And suddenly the kiss wasn't the most dangerous thing in the room anymore. Tessa turned the phone face down like that could make Portland stop existing. It didn't. The silence after the buzz felt different than the silence after the kiss. Colder. Less like possibility and more like a door half open in a room neither of us had meant to enter yet. "Tonight," I said. She nodded. She said she needed an answer by Friday. "It is Sunday." "I noticed." A laugh escaped her, but it broke halfway through. She rubbed her forehead with the heel of her hand, leaving a faint dusting of sugar near her eyebrow. I wanted to touch it. I wanted to touch her. The wanting had always been there, tucked under everyday things. Under carrying her boxes, under watching movies on opposite ends of my couch, under the way she stole fries from my plate and pretended it was taxation. But now that she'd kissed me, Wanting her was no longer a quiet room in the back of my mind. It was the whole house on fire. Tess, I said gently, why didn't you tell me? I was going to. When? From the airport? Her eyes flashed. That's not fair. You're right. I exhaled and dragged a hand through my hair. Sorry. She leaned back against the counter. I didn't tell you because I knew you'd be decent about it. That sounds like a complaint. It is. She looked at me, and there was that brave fear again. You would smile and say it was an amazing opportunity. You'd offer to help me pack. You'd make a spreadsheet. I make excellent spreadsheets. Logan. I shut up. Her voice softened. You would make it easy for me to go. The words landed harder than I expected, because she was right. I had spent years being the safe man, the reasonable man, the man who never asked for too much because asking meant someone could say no. When my mother left when I was 14, my father had responded by becoming quieter than furniture. I learned early that wanting openly did not make people stay. So I became useful instead. Useful people got kept around. Tessa watched my face change. She always noticed too much. Hey, she said, where did you go? I looked at the table. The blindfold was still there, a black ribbon curled beside a bowl of lemon curd. Somewhere unattractive. Impossible. You're annoyingly attractive when brooding. That pulled a laugh out of me despite everything. Her mouth curved, but her eyes stayed serious. I don't want you to be decent right now. I looked up. What do you want? Her fingers tightened around the edge of the counter. I want you to be honest. My heart started climbing my ribs. There are questions that are not questions. There are moments that do not ask for bravery so much as take away every hiding place you have left. I stepped closer. Tessa didn't move away. You want honest? I asked. Yes. I hated seeing that message. Her breath caught. Not because Portland is bad, not because you shouldn't take the job if you want it. My voice lowered. I hated it because you kissed me, and for about 30 seconds I let myself imagine being more than your emergency contact and your website guy and the person who knows you hate cilantro. I do hate cilantro. Tessa. Her lips trembled almost a smile. I took another step until I was close enough to see the tiny gold flecks in her brown eyes. I imagined being the person you come home to, the person you call when something good happens before you post it online, the person who gets to kiss you without needing a blindfold and a dessert excuse. She went very still. My pulse hammered. That honest enough? No, she whispered. My stomach dropped. Then she reached out, caught the front of my shirt in her fist, and tugged me closer. I want the part where you tell me what you want, she said. I could have made a joke. My mouth even tried to find one out of habit, but her hand was against my chest. Her eyes were on mine. And I was tired of being careful in all the wrong ways. I want you, I said. Not as a reason to stay, not as a guilt trip. God, Tess, I want the right to want you. Her eyes shone. For one terrifying second, neither of us moved. Then she kissed me again. This time there was no blindfold, no guessing game, no spoon between us. Just Tessa rising onto her toes and me catching her waist like I'd been waiting 2 years for permission. She tasted like lemon and courage. Her arm slid around my neck, and the sound she made when I pulled her closer nearly erased Portland, the contract, the whole practical world. Nearly. When the kiss softened, she rested her forehead against mine. I was so scared you'd say something noble, she murmured. I considered it, briefly. Thank you for resisting. It was touch and go. She laughed, and the sound loosened something in my chest. I brushed the powdered sugar from her eyebrow with my thumb. You got battle dust on you. I'm a warrior of buttercream. A terrifying one. Her smile faded into something tender. Logan. Yeah? If I take this job, it doesn't mean the kiss didn't matter. I know. Do you? I did not answer fast enough. She searched my face, then sighed and stepped back, though her hand stayed tangled in mine. That small mercy nearly ruined me. I don't know what to do, she admitted. Part of me wants the job so badly I can taste it. A real restaurant, my own menu. No more begging event planners to pay invoices on time. You deserve that. Her fingers squeezed mine, and part of me wants to throw my phone into a cake mixer because you finally said what I've wanted you to say for months. Months? She arched one eyebrow. Don't sound so pleased. You were extremely slow. I was being respectful. You were being dense. I can be both. She laughed again, and for a moment we were us. Banter, warmth, the easy rhythm. But now there was a charge under it, a current. Her thumb moved across my knuckles, shy and deliberate. Can I ask you something selfish? She said. Always. If I have to decide tonight, she swallowed. Can we not spend the whole day deciding? What do you want to do instead? Her cheeks colored. I want a first date. The words hit me with a strange, aching sweetness. A first date, I repeated. Yes, with you. Today. Before everything gets complicated and adult and full of pros and cons. She lifted her chin. I want to know what it feels like to choose this, even for a few hours. I looked at this woman I'd loved sideways for longer than I'd admitted even to myself. Flower on her sleeve, fear in her eyes, hope in her hand holding mine. Then I said the only honest thing left. I'm picking you up in 20 minutes. She blinked. You're standing in my kitchen. I know. But if we're doing a first date, I'm doing it properly. I'll leave. Panic in my car, come back with flowers if the corner store has anything that isn't half dead, and knock on your door like a man with intentions. Her smile grew slow and bright. Intentions? Honorable ones. That's disappointing. My breath caught and she knew it. Tessa Whitaker, menace of my life, leaned in and kissed the corner of my mouth. 20 minutes, she whispered. I backed toward the door because if I didn't, there would be no date. There would only be the two of us in her kitchen, ruining every sensible plan with our hands. At the doorway, I turned. She was standing in the sunlight, touching her lips like she couldn't quite believe they'd been kissed. Tess? Yeah? For the record, the flavor was lemon. Her eyes softened. But the answer, I said, was you. This time, when I left, I heard her laugh through the door. And for the first time all afternoon, it sounded like hope. I spent the first 7 minutes in my car doing exactly what I'd promised. Panicking. Then I drove to the corner market, bought the least tragic bouquet they had, yellow tulips wrapped in crinkly plastic, and stared at the greeting cards long enough for the cashier to ask if I was okay. First date, I said. She looked at the flowers. With someone who likes tulips? I hope so. You don't know. I know she likes cardamom, old musicals, thunderstorms, and insulting my shirts. The cashier nodded solemnly. Sounds serious. It was terrifying how serious it sounded. 20 minutes after leaving Tessa's kitchen, I stood on her porch with grocery store tulips in one hand and my heart acting like it had never been used before. I knocked. She opened the door wearing the same blue sweater, but she'd let her hair down. It fell around her shoulders in loose, dark waves, and I forgot the speech I'd prepared. Her gaze dropped to the flowers. Oh, she said softly, they're not half dead. That's the standard? I'm setting achievable expectations early. She took them from me, her fingers brushing mine. I love tulips. Thank God. Her smile flickered brighter, but beneath it was something fragile. The contract was still waiting somewhere behind her. Portland was still a word neither of us could unhear. But then she stepped onto the porch, locked her door, and slipped her hand into mine. A decision. Small, warm, immediate. So, she said, where are you taking me, First Date Logan? First Date Logan is more confident than regular Logan. Is he? No, but he has flowers. She laughed as we walked to my car, and I opened the passenger door because apparently my nervous system had decided to become a gentleman from a black and white movie. Wow, she said. Door service. I'm trying to trick you into liking me. Bit late for that. I looked at her over the top of the door. Her cheeks flushed, but she didn't look away. I wanted to kiss her right there with one hand on the car roof and Sunday light in her hair. Instead, I closed the door gently and walked around to the driver's side, because restraint was now a heroic act. I took her to Ellington Park, where food trucks lined the curb on weekends and musicians played for cash near the fountain. It was simple, public, safe enough that we wouldn't immediately combust. Tessa glanced at the trucks. You brought a pastry chef to street food? I brought my best friend to somewhere she once said had the best dumplings in Tennessee. You remembered that? I gave her a look. I remember everything you say about food. It's safer that way. She bumped her shoulder into mine. Smart man. We ordered dumplings, spicy noodles, and lemonade we shared because she claimed mine tasted better even though they were identical. We sat under an oak tree with our knees touching, and the contact was so casual, so ordinary it nearly hurt. For 2 years I had loved proximity to her in secret. Now every brush of her leg against mine felt like a sentence being written in ink. Tessa held up a dumpling with her chopsticks. Open! I narrowed my eyes. Is this another test? Maybe. I'm emotionally vulnerable around surprise food now. Poor baby. Despite the teasing, her eyes were gentle. I opened my mouth. She fed me the dumpling, watching my reaction with professional intensity. Ginger, I said. Scallion, pork, and betrayal. Because this is hotter than you warned me. She grinned. Correct. I coughed, reaching for lemonade. She laughed and wiped sauce from the corner of my mouth with her thumb. The touch stopped both of us. Her thumb lingered. My hand closed around her wrist, not to pull her away, just to keep her there for one breath longer. Tess, I said quietly. The park continued around us, dogs barking, kids shrieking near the fountain, a guitarist singing something soft and hopeful. But under that tree she looked at me like the rest of the world had politely stepped aside. I keep thinking I'm going to wake up, she said. From the date or the dumpling assault? From you looking at me like that. I rubbed my thumb over the inside of her wrist. How am I looking at you? Like you've been hungry. I smiled, but it came out uneven. That's inconveniently accurate. Her expression changed. Heat, tenderness, disbelief. Why didn't you ever say anything? The question had followed us from her kitchen. It deserved a better answer than fear, though fear was the truth. Because being your best friend felt like winning, I said. And I convinced myself wanting more was how I'd lose. Her gaze lowered to our hands. I thought maybe I was imagining it, the way you'd go quiet when I dated someone. I was very mature about that. You once alphabetized my spice drawer during my third date with Martin. He said creme brulee was just pudding with armor. He was wrong. He was a monster. She laughed, then grew serious. I stopped dating because of you. My breath caught. She looked embarrassed by her own bravery, but she kept going. Not in some dramatic, tragic way. I just compared everyone to you. How safe I felt. How much I laughed. How you know when I need talking and when I need silence. Her eyes met mine. No one else tasted right. The world narrowed again. I set the food container aside and shifted closer. Tessa. Yeah? I'm going to kiss you in a public park. Good. I wore lip balm. I leaned in laughing and she met me halfway. This kiss was different from the kitchen kisses, less startled, more certain. Her hand slid into my hair and mine settled at her waist, fingers spread against the soft blue knit of her sweater. She kissed me like she was choosing the minute, not avoiding the decision waiting after it. When we parted, her forehead tipped against mine. First date Logan is doing well, she murmured. He's blacked out from joy, but he appreciates the feedback. She smiled against my mouth. We walked after that, hand in hand, letting the park give us things to talk about that weren't airports or contracts. A corgi in a sweater, a toddler furious at a pigeon, the guitarist's questionable pronunciation of Jolene. At a little bridge over the creek, Tessa stopped. I need to tell you something ugly, she said. My chest tightened. Okay? She gripped the railing with one hand, mine with the other. Part of why I didn't tell you about Portland is because I wanted you to ask me not to go. I stayed quiet. And I hate that, she rushed on. I hate that I wanted it. Because I worked so hard to be the kind of woman who chooses her own life. I don't want to become someone who waits for a man to give her permission. I turned toward her fully. Then don't. Her eyes searched mine. I won't ask you not to go, I said, even though the words scraped on the way out. But I will ask you not to make the decision alone just because you're afraid needing someone makes you weak. Her mouth softened. I want to be considered, I said. Not obeyed. Not blamed. Considered. Tessa looked away toward the creek, blinking fast. Then she stepped into me and wrapped her arms around my waist. I held her tightly. For a long moment there was no banter, no performance. Just her cheek against my chest and my hand moving slowly over her hair while Sunday settled around us. I'm considering you, she whispered. That's the problem. I kissed the top of her head. I'm an excellent problem. She laughed shakily into my shirt. Debatable. We stayed like that until her phone buzzed. She didn't pull away immediately. That mattered. Only after another buzz did she sigh and check the screen. Her aunt's name glowed there. This time, beneath it, a new message waited. Needs signed contract by 8 p.m. If not, I have to offer the position to someone else. Tessa read it twice. Then she looked up at me, still in my arms. It's 6:30, she said. And there it was again, the future tapping its watch. 6:30. An hour and a half to decide whether the best day of my life was also the day Tessa moved 2,000 miles away. She stared at her phone, the bridge railing at her back, my hands still at her waist. The position should have been the loudest thing between us. It wasn't. Her body was warm against mine. Her eyes were damp. Her thumb had hooked itself in the belt loop of my jeans as if some honest part of her refused to let go. I should go home, she said. Okay. And read the contract. Okay. And make a rational adult decision. Sounds fake, but okay. That earned me a small laugh. Then she looked up. Will you come with me? The question was quiet, but it felt like a door opening. Yeah, I said. If you want me there. I do. We drove back to her place with the radio low and her hand in mine over the console. It was such a simple thing, fingers linked between the gear shift and two half-empty lemonades, but I kept looking down at it like proof. At a red light, she caught me. You keep staring at my hand. I'm making sure it's real. Her face softened. It's real. The light changed. I didn't move. A horn honked behind us. Tessa burst out laughing. First date Logan is going to get us killed. First date Logan is overwhelmed. Drive, Romeo. Yes, chef. Back at her apartment, the kitchen looked exactly as we'd left it. Tasting spoons scattered like tiny silver witnesses, the blindfold on the table, sunlight now fading to amber across the counter. Tessa paused in the doorway. This room feels different, she said. It has seen things. She glanced at me, mouth twitching. 1 kiss and you're dramatic? 3 kisses. Were you counting? I have an audio editor's attention to detail. She stepped closer and touched the front of my shirt, right over my heart. 4 then. This kiss was soft, barely, more than a press of her lips to mine. But it undid me anyway because she initiated it with no game, no excuse, no impending spoonful of lemon curd. Just want. When she pulled back, she looked steadier. Okay, she said. Contract. We sat side by side at her kitchen table, her laptop open between us. The document glowed with clean, merciless professionalism. Salary, benefits, start date, relocation stipend, creative control over the dessert menu, everything she deserved, everything that would take her away. Tessa read silently, one knee bouncing under the table. I forced myself not to fill the quiet. This was her life, her dream. I could be present without becoming gravity. Halfway through, she leaned her shoulder against mine, not because she needed rescuing, because she wanted contact. I kissed her temple and kept reading. This is a good offer, I said finally. I know. Like, offensively good. I know. They're giving you menu control in the first quarter. I saw. And health insurance that doesn't sound like a pirate wrote it. She looked at me. Are you trying to talk me into leaving? No. Could have fooled me. I'm trying to be honest. Her expression tightened. There's that word again. Tess. She stood abruptly, chair scraping. Sorry, I know you're doing the right thing. The right thing might be overrated. No, it isn't. She paced to the counter, then back. That's the problem. You are good. You're kind and reasonable, and you look at this contract and see my future. I see you, I said. She stopped. I stood too, slowly. I see the woman who came home crying after that wedding planner told her cake was too ambitious, then stayed up until 2 making sugar flowers because the bride loved peonies. I see the woman who labels her spices alphabetically now, even though she pretends it's annoying. I see you watching videos of restaurant plating at midnight like some people watch the porn. Her lips parted. That was one time. It was 4 times. Traitor! I moved closer. I see how badly you want this. I'm not going to pretend I don't because it would make me feel safer. Her eyes shone again, but her voice sharpened. And what about what you want? I want you. That's not an answer. It's the truest one I have. She shook her head. No, I mean, what does that look like? If I go, if I stay, if we do this, are we dating for 3 weeks and then waving at each other through a screen until it gets too hard? The fear in her voice finally matched mine. I reached for her hand, but she pulled it back. Not cruelly, like she needed to keep standing. I can't be your almost, she said. I can't kiss you today and then become some story you tell later about bad timing. Something inside me cracked open. My mother left, I said. Tessa went still. I hadn't planned to say it, not like that. Not in her kitchen with Portland on a laptop screen and lemon curd drying in a bowl, but there it was. When I was 14, I continued, voice rougher now. She packed 2 suitcases while my dad was at work. She told me she loved me, kissed my forehead, and said she needed to find herself. I used to think if I was easier, quieter, more useful, maybe she'd come back. Tessa's face changed completely. Logan. So I got good at not asking people to stay? I swallowed. I got good at being the guy nobody has to feel guilty about leaving. She crossed the space between us in 2 steps. This time she took my face in both hands. You were a kid, she whispered. That wasn't yours to fix. I know that. Do you? I closed my eyes. Her thumbs moved along my jaw, gentle, furious on my behalf. When I opened my eyes again, she was close enough that I could feel her breath. I don't want you because you're useful, she said. I want you because you are you. The man who remembers dumplings and buys nervous tulips and knows when my laugh is fake. The man who makes terrible puns when I'm spiraling. The man I kissed because I couldn't stand leaving without knowing. My hands found her waist. And now you know, I asked. Her eyes dropped to my mouth. Now I know it's worse. I laughed once, brokenly. She kissed me then like an answer, deep, tender, full of ache. I held her against me, not to keep her from going, but because she was there and choosing to be. Her fingers slid into my hair. My back hit the edge of the counter. One of the tasting spoons clattered to the floor and she smiled against my mouth. Your kitchen is attacking me, I murmured. My kitchen ships us. I laughed and she kissed the laugh right out of me. For a few minutes, we let the world shrink to touch. Her hands at my neck, my palm spread over her back. The soft sound she made when I kissed the corner of her mouth and then her cheek, her temple, the place beneath her ear that made her grip my shirt. Then she rested her forehead against my chest. I'm scared, she admitted. Me too. If I go, I need you not to disappear slowly. I won't. If you say that, mean it. I tipped her chin up. I mean it. I'll visit. I'll call. I'll learn to sleep with my phone on loud. I'll be insufferable on video chat. And if I stay? Then we figure out what you're staying for. Not just me, not fear. Something that belongs to you, too. She stared at me for a long time. Then she went back to the laptop. At 7:42, she opened an email to her aunt. I stood behind her chair, one hand on her shoulder. She leaned into it. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Dear Aunt Elise, she typed, then stopped, deleted it, typed again. I can't sign tonight. My heart stopped. Tessa inhaled shakily and kept typing. Not because I'm saying no, because I need to know if this opportunity is still mine if I ask for 1 week to make the decision properly. She looked up at me. Is that cowardly? No, I said. It's honest. Her eyes searched mine, and whatever she found there made her nod. She hit send at 7:58. For 2 seconds, we just stared at the screen. Then her phone rang. Aunt Elise. Tessa turned in the chair and grabbed my hand. Stay, she mouthed. I squeezed her fingers. She answered. Hi. I couldn't hear the other side, only the changing shape of Tessa's face. Hope, worry, surprise. Then her eyes flew to mine. She says the job can wait 1 week, Tessa whispered, covering the phone. But she wants me in Portland tomorrow to see the restaurant before I decide. Tomorrow? Tessa's hand tightened around mine, and this time the future wasn't tapping its watch. It was boarding a plane. Tomorrow. The word landed between us, heavy and impossible. Tessa was still on the phone, her fingers locked around mine like she'd forgotten how to stand without me. I could hear only the faint murmur of her aunt's voice, not the words, but I saw the offer in Tessa's face. Come see it. Come imagine yourself here. Come choose. I understand, Tessa said. Yes, I'll look at flights. She listened, swallowed, then glanced at me. No, she said softly. I'm not alone. My chest tightened. After she hung up, she set the phone on the table with too much care. She booked me a ticket, she said. Morning flight, just to visit. She said if I see the kitchen and still need the week, she'll give it to me. That's good. Tessa gave me a tired look. Don't be noble at me again. I'm not. I crouched in front of her chair so we were eye to eye. It's good because you get to see the place before you decide. It's terrible because I already hate tomorrow morning. Her mouth trembled. Better? I asked. Much. I rested my hands on her knees. Do you want me to drive you to the airport? I want… She stopped, searching my face. I want something unreasonable. My specialty. I want you to come with me. For a second, I forgot how to breathe. Tessa rushed on. Not to influence me, not to make it romantic pressure, just, if this is going to change my life, I want my best friend there. Her eyes softened. And the man I kissed in my kitchen, if he's available. The old Logan would have calculated vacation days, costs, consequences, and all the safe reasons to hesitate. But I had spent years not asking, not reaching, not choosing loudly. So I said, I'll book a ticket. Her whole face opened. Then she slid out of the chair and into my arms so fast I nearly toppled backward. We ended up laughing on her kitchen floor, her knees bracketing mine, her hands on my shoulders. This is a very strange first date, I said. She touched my cheek. Best one I've ever had. Low bar? Extremely. High bar. She kissed me once, smiling. You brought tulips. By midnight, she had packed half her closet, rejected 3 Portland pastry chef outfits, and fallen asleep on the couch with her head in my lap while I booked the last overpriced seat on her flight. I didn't sleep much. I kept watching her, my fingers moving lightly through her hair, trying to teach my body that love didn't have to mean bracing for goodbye. At the airport the next morning, she bought 2 coffees and handed me the one with less sugar. You remembered my order, I said. I remember everything you say about coffee. It's safer that way. I smiled. Thief. Girlfriend, she corrected. The word hit me so hard I stopped walking. Tessa turned, suddenly shy. Too soon? I set down my carry-on, stepped into her space, and kissed her in the middle of the terminal. People moved around us with rolling suitcases and board announcements and lives of their own, but Tessa made a soft sound against my mouth and gripped my jacket like I was the only arrival that mattered. When I pulled back, her eyes were bright. Not too soon, I said. Portland was rain-silvered and green, smelling like coffee, wet pavement, and possibility. Her aunt's restaurant was still under construction, all exposed brick and unfinished floors, but the pastry kitchen was real. I watched Tessa step inside it and fall in love. Not with me, with herself, with the steel counters, the proofing racks, the ovens waiting like promises. with the menu drafts her aunt handed her, with the idea of becoming bigger than the version of herself Nashville had already learned. It hurt, and it made me proud. That night, we sat in a tiny hotel room with takeout noodles balanced on the bed, rain ticking against the window. Tessa was quiet for a long time. "You saw it," she said. "I did. I want it." "I know." Her eyes filled. "I also want you." I set my food aside. "Then we don't treat those like enemies." "How?" "We start messy. We start honestly. You take the job if it's your yes. I stay in Nashville for now because my work is there, but I come here every month. You come home when you can. We call, we fight fair. We don't disappear slowly." I took her hand, and in 6 months, we reassess. Together. She stared at me. "You do that?" "I do much more than that. I'm trying not to scare you." "Scare me a little." So I did. "I love you," I said. The words changed the air. Tessa covered her mouth, then laughed through tears. "You absolute menace." That wasn't the response I imagined. I had a whole speech planned for saying it first. She climbed into my lap, knees on either side of my hips, her hands warm on my face. "I love you too, Logan Pierce. I have loved you through bad shirts, worse coffee, and emotional constipation." That last one feels private. It was severe. I laughed, and then she kissed me with rain on the windows and noodles going cold beside us. No blindfold, no guessing. Just the two of us, finally telling the truth. Tessa signed the contract the next morning. I held her hand after, not because she needed permission, but because she reached for me. 6 months later, I was the guy with a suitcase permanently half-packed. I learned the Nashville to Portland flight schedule better than my own grocery list. Tessa learned to fall asleep on video calls with her cheek mashed adorably against a pillow. We missed each other. We wanted each other. Sometimes the distance was ugly and inconvenient, and sometimes it made our reunions feel like whole holidays condensed into one doorway. Then my company offered remote work. By the following spring, I moved into a Portland apartment 3 blocks from Tessa's restaurant, where she had become mildly famous for a lemon lavender tart she refused to admit was inspired by me. On opening night of the spring menu, I sat at the counter after closing, while she tied the same black silk scarf over my eyes. "Absolutely not," I said. "Absolutely yes. I have trauma. You have flair." She fed me something delicate and sweet. "Peach," I guessed. "Good. Cinnamon. Very good." Then her fingers touched my chin. I smiled before she kissed me. "Guess the flavor," she whispered against my mouth. This time I didn't hesitate. "Home." She took off the blindfold, and there she was. Flower. On her wrist, love in her eyes, the woman who had once kissed me to find out if leaving would hurt. It had. But staying honest had healed us into something better than easy. Something chosen. So tell me, what would you have done if your best friend blindfolded you for taste test, kissed you, and asked you to guess the flavor? Have you ever experienced something like that where one kiss changed everything? Tell your story in the comments. And for those who'd like to be a little closer to us, we've opened memberships where you'll get shorter exclusive stories every week with no ads. If you like this one, leave a like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.